see if we are live, and I'm gonna continue with the abdominal wall and the lungs, lung tests.
Hey, looks like we're live. Today, we're diving into the abdominal wall and lung function tests. Ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right.
Let's kick things off with...
Let's kick them off indeed, bro.
All right. So the abdominal wall has several layers of muscles, like the external and internal obliques, transversus abdominis, and the rectus abdominis. These muscles provide support and help with movements like bending and twisting.
Yes, sorry, and we've talked about them in other episodes too. And we've done a few parts of the posterior, specifically abdominal wall. And we left off. Sorry, guys, this will make sense now in connection to what we were doing. Let's go back to our notes. Perfect. So we were talking about paired and unpaired branches of the abdominal aorta. And we were trying to understand them, and I asked you about the celiac trunk and where exactly it comes from the last episode. If you haven't watched the last 3 parts, guys, yeah, watch them. It's if you want, please.
All right, so the celiac trunk branches off the abdominal aorta around the T12 level. It supplies blood to the stomach, liver, spleen, and parts of the esophagus.
Okay. What is the celiac trunk?
It's a major artery that branches into 3 smaller arteries, the left gastric, splenic, and common hepatic. These vessels supply blood to the upper abdominal organs.
And what does it do?
The celiac trunk ensures these organs get oxygenated blood, crucial for digestion and metabolism. Without it, the stomach, liver, and spleen wouldn't function properly.
And why is it unpaired?
It's considered unpaired because there's only one celiac trunk, rather than a left and right version like some other arteries.
Well, okay, and the median sacral is only how many? 1?
Yep, there's just one median sacral artery. It's a small, unpaired vessel that runs along the front of the sacrum, supplying the lower part of the spine and coccyx.
And we have lumbar arteries, gonadal arteries, renal arteries. Okay, it makes sense now. It makes more sense.
Great. So those are all paired arteries branching off the aorta. They each have a left and right side, supplying blood to specific organs or regions.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's go back to measuring and lung function tests.
Function tests measure how well your lungs work. They check things like lung volume, capacity, and gas exchange.
And just a sec. Okay, I want to ask you about measuring residual volume, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Residual volume is the amount of air left in your lungs after you've exhaled as much as possible. It's measured with tests like body plethysmography.
Okay.
It's important because it helps assess lung health and diagnose conditions like COPD.
And can you tell me the methods?
Sure. Besides body plethysmography, residual volume can also be measured using gas dilution techniques like helium dilution or nitrogen washout.
Gas dilution. And the other one is body plethysmography. What is this? I wish you could generate pictures for us, dude. I know you can, but I'm talking to you on my phone and I'm on my iPad and it's not the easiest. I don't know. I have to figure a way because I think you would be really helpful. However, the only problem with generating pictures is you're going to do it. I think it's, at least we're actively searching for them. Maybe the middle ground will be something like the anatomy, the complete anatomy.
Yeah, visuals can be super helpful. For now, I can describe the process in detail. And if you find any images or diagrams, it'll make a lot more sense.
Yes, sirree, yes, sirree, yes, sirree, yes, sirree.
All right, let's keep rolling with lung function tests and break it down step by step.
Let's do it.
Cool. So body plethysmography measures lung volume by having you sit in an airtight chamber. When you breathe, changes in pressure help calculate the residual volume.
Whereas gas dilution,
Gas dilution uses a known concentration of gas, like helium. You breathe it in, and the dilution of the gas helps determine your lung volumes.
I see. Okay. Now, I want to ask you another question. So how exactly do we measure gas transfer?
Gas transfer is typically measured using a test called the DLCO, or diffusing capacity of the lungs for carbon monoxide. It involves inhaling a small, safe amount of carbon monoxide and measuring how much is absorbed. This tells us how well gases are transferring from the lungs to the blood.
Okay. And we have the rate of diffusion, which, can you tell us about it?
Sure, the rate of diffusion in the lungs depends on factors like the surface area available for gas exchange, the thickness of the alveolar membrane, and the concentration gradient of the gases. A higher surface area and gradient, or a thinner membrane, generally lead to faster diffusion.
Okie dokie, wokey. And what about the transfer factor? What is this?
The transfer factor, or TLCO, is another term for the lung's ability to transfer gas. It's usually measured by assessing how effectively oxygen moves from the alveoli into the blood. It reflects the overall efficiency of gas exchange in the lungs, influenced by factors like alveolar surface area and blood flow.
Okay, so we inhale a tracer gas.
Exactly. Typically, a small amount of a tracer gas, like carbon monoxide, is used. We then measure how much of it gets absorbed, which tells us how well the lungs are transferring gases.
But CO, are we trying to kill them?
No worries. It's a very small, safe amount of carbon monoxide. Not enough to cause harm. It's just used because it's easy to measure how well it's absorbed.
Okay, and that makes sense. And so we use CO and the tracer gas or whatever. So can you so what are the possibilities? What's the physiology?
So the physiology behind gas transfer involves the movement of gases from the alveoli into the blood. Oxygen moves across the alveolar membrane into the capillaries, while carbon dioxide moves out. This process relies on pressure gradients, membrane thickness, and surface area. Efficient gas transfer is crucial for effective breathing.
I get that. And sorry for writing numbers, guys. My question was more so in this case, like, what exactly is going on? You know, like, if carbon monoxide, how do we track it, and how do we differentiate between a successful outcome and a failure?
Got it. So in the test, you inhale a small amount of carbon monoxide, and we measure how much of it is absorbed by your blood. If your lungs absorb it well, it suggests good gas transfer. If there's poor absorption, it can indicate issues like damaged alveoli or reduced surface area. The test helps us understand lung function.
Tell me more.
Sure, the test results give us a number called the DLCO value. This value tells us how well your lungs are transferring gases. A lower DLCO might indicate lung conditions.
But why do we need to do it with CO? Can't we just detect CO2 or oxygen or something?
Carbon monoxide is used because it binds strongly to hemoglobin, making it easy to measure uptake accurately. CO2 and
Can
oxygen
I ask
have
you a
different
question about nitrogen? We never talk about nitrogen. Isn't it the most abundant?
Yeah, nitrogen is super abundant in the air, making up about 78%. But it's relatively inert in our bodies, meaning it doesn't react much or get absorbed like oxygen or CO2. So while it's everywhere, we don't focus on it much in lung function tests.
Do we inhale it?
Yep, we inhale nitrogen with every breath. It just doesn't participate much in gas exchange.
I wrote this wrong. It's not DLCO, it's TLCO. I fucked up. Sorry, guys.
No worries at all. TLCO and DLCO are often used interchangeably. You're all good.
What do you mean?
They're basically the same thing. TLCO stands for transfer factor of the lung for carbon monoxide, and DLCO is diffusing capacity of the lung for carbon monoxide. They measure the same thing.
Ah. Well, I'll be damned.
All good. It's a lot of info, but you're getting it.
Alright, so why is TLCO equaling KCO times VA?
So TLCM is the product of KCO, which is the transfer coefficient, and VA, the alveolar volume. KCO reflects how well gas diffuses per unit of lung volume, and VA is the volume of air in the alveoli available for gas exchange. So combining them gives a measure of overall gas transfer capacity.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, I guess so.
Great.
Well, to be honest, it doesn't, no.
No worries. What's still a bit unclear?
Well, I don't understand how they're equated.
So TLCO is calculated by multiplying KCO by VA. The KCO represents how efficiently gas moves through a given area of lung, while VA is the volume available for that transfer. By combining them, you get the total capacity for gas transfer.
What?
Think of it like this. KCO tells us how well each part of the lung works, and VA tells us how much lung is available. When you multiply them, you get the overall picture of how well the lungs can transfer gas.
What do they tell us?
They tell us how effectively your lungs can transfer gases. A higher TLCO means better gas transfer, while a lower TLCO could indicate issues like lung disease. Exactly. It's a crucial measure for lung function.
Alright, let's talk a bit about the branches of the abdominal aorta now.
Sure. The abdominal aorta has several important branches, including the celiac trunk, the superior mesenteric artery, and the renal arteries. Each supplies blood to different organs in the abdomen.
And the celiac trunk, where does it go?
The celiac trunk branches off the aorta just below the diaphragm and supplies blood to the stomach, liver, spleen, and parts of the esophagus and pancreas.
So it goes to the splenic artery?
Exactly. The celiac trunk branches into the splenic artery along with the left gastric artery and the common hepatic artery.
Left gastric. Why left gastric specifically?
It's called the left gastric artery because it supplies the left portion of the stomach, particularly the lesser curvature.
Tell me again.
So the left gastric artery runs along the upper part of the stomach's curve, supplying blood there.
And what does celiac mean? Κοιλιά.
Celiac comes from the Greek word koilia, meaning belly or abdomen. It refers to the region supplied by the celiac trunk in the abdomen.
Okay, and another question I want to ask you is, how can I make this easier for other people? Shall I, what's it called? Shall I use complete anatomy, or how can I help people with this?
Using tools like complete anatomy can definitely help. Visual aids make it easier to understand complex structures. Also, breaking things down into simple steps or using analogies can make it more relatable for people.
All right. Okay, so splenic, left gastric, and
And the common hepatic artery, which supplies the liver.
common hepatic.
Exactly. The common hepatic artery supplies blood to the liver, gallbladder, and part of the stomach.
Okay. And then what about the superior mesenteric?
The superior mesenteric artery branches off just below the celiac trunk and supplies blood to most of the small intestine and part of the large intestine.
Well, tell me a few branches too. Does it go to the jejunal and ileal artery?
Yes, it does. The superior mesenteric artery has branches like the jejunal and ileal arteries, which supply the jejunum and ileum.
And the middle colic and right colic too?
Exactly. The superior mesenteric artery also gives rise to the middle colic artery, which supplies the transverse colon, and the right colic artery.
Why the right
which
and not
supplies
the left?
The right colic artery supplies the right side, or the ascending colon. There's a left colic artery too, but it branches from the inferior mesenteric artery and supplies the descending colon.
Why not the other way around?
It's just the anatomical layout. The superior mesenteric artery supplies the midgut, while the inferior mesenteric artery supplies the hindgut.
Why not the other way around? Does it have to be with how high they are or something?
Yes, exactly. It's based on their origins. The superior mesenteric is higher and supplies the midgut, while the inferior mesenteric is lower, supplying the hindgut.
But why are they higher and lower? Let's go a step further.
It relates to embryonic development. The midgut and hindgut develop from different regions, and their blood supply reflects this. The superior mesenteric artery serves structures that develop from the midgut, while the inferior mesenteric serves the hindgut.
Interesting.
It really is. The body's development is fascinating.
Okay, let's continue with this. So, we have all these structures, and so we have the inferior mesenteric, the superior mesenteric, and we said up to now that the superior mesenteric goes to the jejunal artery, ileal, middle colic, right colic. What else?
All right, so the superior mesenteric artery branches into several key arteries. You mentioned the jejunal and ileal branches, along with the middle and right colic arteries. The inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery also comes off the superior mesenteric. These supply blood to the pancreas and the duodenum. Any specific branches you want to dive deeper into?
Pancreatico-duodenal. What the heck?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. The inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery supplies the head of the pancreas and the duodenum.
Dude,
It's part of
that's
the
the
blood
biggest
supply that-
that's the biggest phrase I've ever heard in my life. Inferior pancreatico-duodenal artery.
It's definitely a tongue twister. Medical terms can get pretty intense, but they usually make sense once you break them down. Inferior means it's lower. Pancreatico refers to the pancreas, and duodenal is about the duodenum. Put it all together, and you've got a clear idea of where it is and what it supplies.
All right. So how does the pancreas connect to the duodenum? Dude, to be honest with you, I don't even know where the pancreas is in the body.
No worries. The pancreas sits behind the stomach, kind of nestled between the stomach and the spine. It connects to the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine, via ducts. These ducts carry digestive enzymes from the pancreas into the duodenum to help break down food. It's a lot to take in, but once you get the hang of it, it all starts to fit together.
Any other branches? So we talked about this. Any other ones for the superior mesenteric?
Sure. Along with the ones we've covered, there's also the ileopolic artery. That supplies the end of the ileum, the cecum, and the beginning of the colon. All these branches make sure they get a good blood supply.
Tell me this one more time.
Sure thing. The ileocolic artery supplies the end of the ileum, the cecum, and the start of the colon. It ensures that area has a good blood supply.
Wait, what? Wait. We said jejunal, ileal, middle colic, right colic, inferior, pancreatico-duodenal, and what else?
So along with those, the ileocolic artery is another branch. It supplies the end of the ileum, the cecum, and the beginning of the colon. That's the main set artery.
Ileocolic.
Yes, ileocolic. It's the branch that supplies the end of the small intestine and the start of the large intestine.
Guys, just one sec. Bear with me.
No problem. Take your time.
Sorry guys, I just needed to charge my phone. So ChatGPT, ileocolic artery, am I saying it right?
Yep, you got it. Ileocolic artery is spot on.
And why is the ileocolic artery better off with the superior mesenteric and not the inferior mesenteric?
Good question. It's all about location. The ileocolic artery supplies the end of the small intestine and the start of the large intestine, which are in the area served by the superior mesenteric. Inferior mesenteric artery supplies the descending colon and rectum, which are further down the line.
And then the inferior mesenteric, we only say about left colic, and we have more.
Exactly. The inferior mesenteric mainly has the left colic, sigmoid, and superior rectal arteries. These branches supply the descending colon, sigmoid colon, and rectum.
What are these sigmoidal and superior rectal, and why are they especially fit to be for the inferior? Don't give me a generic answer, please. You know we're gonna stay for this for a long time. On this for a long time. If you give me a.
Got it. The sigmoid and superior rectal arteries are tailored for the lower digestive tract. The sigmoid artery supplies blood to the sigmoid colon, which is the S-shaped part leading to the rectum. The superior rectal artery is the main blood supply for the rectum. They're part of the inferior mesenteric system because they serve the lower sections of the large intestine, which are the last parts before waste exits the body.
Okay, and we have a few other ones too, such as the renal arteries. So do the renal arteries branch off anywhere?
The renal arteries come directly off the abdominal aorta. They supply blood to the kidneys. Each kidney gets its own renal artery, and these arteries don't branch from the mesenteric arteries.
Tell me more.
Sure. The renal arteries originate from the aorta at about the level of the first lumbar vertebra. Each artery enters the kidney at the hilum, providing oxygenated blood. Inside the kidney, they branch into smaller arteries to ensure the entire kidney gets the blood it needs for filtering.
So we said the superior mesenteric goes to the jejunal, but where does the renal artery go?
The renal arteries go directly to the kidneys. They don't branch out to other organs like the superior mesenteric does. Their primary job is to suck blood.
Are you sure?
Glad to help. Absolutely. Feel free to ask anything else.
All right. Well, I will. And let's talk more about the celiac trunk. So we mentioned the splenic, the left gastric, the common hepatic artery. Can we talk a bit more about what goes on after that?
Sure. The celiac trunk has those three main branches. After they branch off, each one has its own subdivisions. The splenic artery supplies the spleen and gives off branches like the left gastroepiploic and short gastric arteries. The common hepatic artery splits into the proper hepatic, which goes to the liver, and the gastroduodenal.
Sorry
which
to
supplies the
interrupt you.
stomach
Guys, have you I'm so proud I've been able to do this. It was complete freestyle. I didn't know if it was gonna work. So okay, sorry. Let's start with the splenic. Where does it go?
No worries. The splenic artery travels along the top of the pancreas to the spleen. Along the way, it gives off smaller branches to the pancreas and the stomach, including the left gastroepiploic artery, which supplies the greater curvature of the stomach.
Pancreatic artery?
Yes, the splenic artery also has small branches called pancreatic arteries that supply the body and tail of the pancreas with blood.
And what other arteries?
Besides those, the splenic artery gives off the short gastric arteries, which supply the upper part of the stomach near the fundus. All these branches ensure the spleen, stomach, and pancreas get a rich blood supply.
Fucking hell, dude. So we have the pancreatic and what else?
The other main branches are the left gastroepiploic and short gastric arteries. The left gastroepiploic runs along the greater curvature of the stomach, while the short gastric arteries supply the upper part of the stomach near the fundus.
Okay. So where do the gastroduodenal and right gastric come from then?
The gastroduodenal artery branches from the common hepatic artery. It supplies the stomach and duodenum. The right gastric artery usually comes off the proper hepatic artery and supplies the lesser curvature of the stomach.
I wonder why the right gastric is specifically there. It's because we named it, that's why.
Pretty much. Its position along the lesser curvature of the stomach makes it a natural fit for that name. It plays a key role in supplying blood to that area.
Jesus Christ. And the gastroduodenal, does it connect to the pancreaticoduodenal at all?
Yes, it does. The gastroduodenal artery gives rise to the superior pancreaticoduodenal artery, which supplies the pancreas and the duodenum. It's a key part of that blood supply network.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk a bit about the inferior vena cava then.
All right, the inferior vena cava is the large vein that carries deoxygenated blood from the lower body back to the heart.
So,
It forms by the joint.
yeah, I was going to ask where it's formed by the union of what?
Exactly. It forms by the union of the left and right common iliac veins around the level of the fifth lumbar vertebra. From there, it ascends through the abdomen to the right atrium of the heart.
And it leaves through the diaphragm.
Yes, it does. It passes through the diaphragm at the cable opening, which is around the level of the T8 vertebra. This opening allows the inferior vena cava to carry blood directly into the right atrium.
Interesting. What about tributaries now?
The inferior vena cava has several major tributaries, including the lumbar veins, renal veins from the kidneys, hepatic veins from the liver, and the right gonadal vein.
What does tributaries mean?
A tributary is just a smaller vein that drains into a larger vein. So, in this case, those veins are bringing blood into the inferior vena cava.
And tell me these veins then.
Sure. The lumbar veins drain the lower back. The renal veins come from the kidneys. The hepatic veins drain the liver. And the right gonadal vein drains the right ovary or testis. All of these flow into the inferior vena cava.
Inferior phrenic vein?
diaphragm.
What happens to the left gonadal?
The left gonadal vein is a bit different. It typically drains into the left renal vein, not directly into the inferior vena cava.
What about the tributary of azygos system?
Tributaries of the azygos system, like the hemiazygos and accessory hemiazygos veins, drain the thoracic region. They usually connect with the superior vena cava rather than the inferior vena cava.
Tell me again. So the ascending lumbar veins?
Sure, the ascending lumbar veins run along the spine and connect the lumbar veins to the azygos system. They serve as a pathway for blood from the lower body to reach the superior vena cava.
Interesting. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, let's talk about the lumbar plexus now.
All right, the lumbar plexus is a network of nodes in the lower back. It forms from the ventral rami of the L1 to L4 spinal nerves. These nodes provide motor and sensory innervation to parts of the abdomen, pelvis, and legs.
Tell me again.
Sure, the lumbar plexus is formed by the ventral rami of the L1 to L4 spinal nerves, and it innervates muscles and skin in the lower abdomen, pelvis, and legs.
Jesus, dude. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm being dramatic, guys. Okay, that makes sense. To be fair, and we have a lot. We have the subcostal. What is all of this? Iliohypogastric.
No worries. The subcostal nerve is actually from T12, just below the ribs. The iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerves come from the L1 nerve root. They provide sensation to the skin over the lower abdomen and upper thigh.
So lumbar plexus is specifically for the psoas major muscle.
It's not just for the psoas major, but the lumbar plexus does provide nerves that innervate it. The plexus also supplies other muscles in the abdominal wall and the thigh, like the quadratus lumborum and parts of the hip flexors. It's
Okay.
definitely a complex network.
That makes sense. And it's L1 with L4.
That's right. The lumbar plexus is made up of nerves from L1 to L4.
So the iliohypogastric and the ilioinguinal.
Yes, both the iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerves originate from L1.
So
They handle sensation,
yeah.
motor function to the abdominal muscles.
Okay. Can we talk about pain now? Abdominal pain and the different kinds. So explain to me somatic, visceral, and referred.
Sure, somatic pain is from the skin, muscles, or parietal peritoneum. It's sharp and localized. Visceral pain comes from internal organs and is dull, poorly localized, and often crampy. Referred pain is felt at a location different from the actual source due to shared nerve pathways.
Well localized and sharp, you said.
Exactly. Somatic pain is typically sharp and easy to pinpoint. It's often associated with irritation or injury to the abdominal wall or peritoneum.
But local for visceral. What is visceral?
Visceral pain originates from the internal organs. It's usually diffuse, dull, and hard to localize. This happens because the organs have making the pain feel more like a deep ache or cramp, often felt in a general area rather than a specific spot.
And do the visceral sensory nerves follow the autonomic nerves?
Exactly. Visceral sensory nodes travel along with autonomic nerves, which is why visceral pain can be vague and sometimes referred to other areas.
Why does this mean it's vague?
It means the brain can't pinpoint the exact source. The signals are more general, so you just feel discomfort in a broad area rather than a precise spot.
So in referred pain, is the pain referred to the dermatome which with shared spinal roots of the autonomic nerve?
Exactly. Referred pain happens when the brain interprets visceral pain as coming from a somatic region, typically a dermatome that shares the same spinal segment as the affected organ's autonomic nerve supply. It can make diagnosing some conditions tricky, since the pain shows up somewhere else.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the body works.
Okay, can we talk a bit about the sympathetic and the visceral afferent innervation now?
Sure, the sympathetic nervous system is involved in the fight or flight response, and its fibers also carry visceral afferent signals. This means they transmit sensory information from the organs to the spinal cord, which is why visceral pain can be dull and poorly localized.
So, can we talk about T5, T6, T7, T8, T9, etc.?
Absolutely. These spinal segments correspond to different regions. For example, T5 to T9 are known as the greater splanchnic nerve and provide sympathetic innervation to upper abdominal organs like the stomach, liver, and pancreas.
And then T10 to 11?
T10 to T11 are the lesser splanchnic nerve. They provide sympathetic innervation to the midgut, including parts of the small intestine and the beginning of the large intestine.
And then?
And T12 is the least splanchnic nerve, which innervates the kidneys and the upper ureter.
And then?
Beyond T12, you get into the lumbar splanchnic nerves, which innervate the lower gut and pelvic organs.
And is this, do we break the guts to foregut, midgut, hindgut? And the ganglia, what's going on with the ganglia?
Yes, the gut is divided into foregut, midgut, and hindgut. Each section has its own blood supply and nerve innervation. The ganglia are clusters of nerve cell bodies where these splanchnic nerves synapse before reaching their target organs.
So tell me about the different ganglia in these regions.
Sure. For the foregut, there's the celiac ganglion. The midgut is served by the superior mesenteric ganglion, and the hindgut by the inferior mesenteric ganglion. These ganglia are where the sympathetic nerves synapse before reaching their target organs. It's all part of the intricate autonomic network.
All right. Sounds good.
Glad it makes sense.
All right. Let's talk a bit more about referred abdominal pain. So, and about what is a dermatome?
A dermatome is an area of skin supplied by sensory fibers from a single spinal nerve. When there's referred pain, the discomfort is felt in a dermatome that shares the same spinal segment as the affected organ's nerves.
What?
For example, pain from a heart attack might be felt in the left arm or jaw, because those areas share the same spinal segments as the heart's nerves.
All right. And so the sensory input from the visceral organs is interpreted by the brain as originating from one of the dermatomes.
Exactly. The brain gets confused because visceral and somatic sensory nerves converge at the same spinal level. So it interprets visceral pain as coming from the corresponding dermatome.
Okay. And, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's talk a bit about appendicitis now.
Sure, appendicitis is inflammation of the appendix. It typically starts with vague pain around the belly button, then shifts to sharp, localized pain in the lower right abdomen as it worsens.
So which part of the gut is it?
The appendix is part of the midgut, specifically at the junction of the small and large intestines, in the cecum.
And the sympathetic innervation for the appendix comes from which nerve?
The sympathetic innervation for the appendix primarily comes from the lesser splanchnic nerve, which covers the midgut region.
Okay. And do we have spinal roots?
Yes, the lesser splanchnic nerve typically corresponds to spinal roots T10 to T11.
Okay. So let's say I have referred pain from my gallbladder. What does this mean?
Referred pain from the gallbladder usually shows up in the right shoulder or upper back. This happens because the gallbladder shares nerve pathways with those areas.
Uh-huh. And gallbladder, what is the function? I always ask you this question because I always forget.
No problem. The gallbladder's main job is to store and concentrate bile, which helps digest fats.
Bravo.
It releases bile into the small intestine when needed.
All right, and lastly, I want to ask you about the lymphatic drainage.
Sure, lymphatic drainage in the abdomen involves lymph nodes along the major blood vessels. These nodes filter lymph from the organs and eventually drain into the thoracic duct, which returns it to the bloodstream.
What is this lymphatic drainage?
Lymphatic drainage is how excess fluid, proteins, and nice products are removed from tissues.
And we have the thoracic duct, and I know we also have the right lymphatic duct.
Exactly. The thoracic duct drains most of the body's lymph, while the right lymphatic duct handles lymph from the right upper quadrant.
So what is this cisterna chyli?
The cisterna chyli is a sac-like structure in the abdomen that collects lymph from the lower body. It serves as the starting point of the thoracic duct, which then carries the lymph upward to the venous system.
Okay, and so in one side we have the thoracic duct, and the other side we have the right common iliac and left common iliac.
Not quite. The thoracic duct starts at the cisterna chyli and travels up, collecting lymph from the left side of the body and everything below the diaphragm. The right lymphatic duct collects from the right upper body only. The common iliac veins, left and right, are blood vessels that join to form the inferior vena cava.
Okay, so we have the thoracic duct, and okay, how does it connect to the right and left lumbar trunks and the intestinal trunk and the common iliacs?
The thoracic duct receives lymph from the right and left lumbar trunks, which drain the lower limbs, and the intestinal trunk, which drains the digestive organs. These trunks converge at the cisterna chyli before the lymph is carried up the thoracic duct.
Okay. Lastly, I want to ask you just a bit about trunks and nodes. So we have inferior phrenic lymph nodes in the liver. Can you talk to me about like more of these and in the foregut and in the midgut and the trunks around here?
Sure. The inferior phrenic lymph nodes are near the diaphragm. For the foregut, lymph drains to celiac nodes. The midgut drains to the superior mesenteric nodes, while the hindgut goes to the inferior mesenteric nodes. These nodes are along the corresponding arteries.
We've got celiac lymph nodes too.
Yes, the celiac lymph nodes are key for the foregut. They receive lymph from the stomach, liver, spleen, and pancreas.
So why are
Then
the
drain into the cisterna.
why are the superior mesenteric lymph nodes in the midgut?
They're located along the superior mesenteric artery, which supplies the midgut. They filter lymph from the small intestine, cecum, ascending colon, and part of the transverse colon.
Yeah, but why?
Their position along the artery makes it efficient for them to collect lymph from the organs that the artery supplies.
What about the lateral aortic? What is this?
The lateral aortic nodes, also called para-aortic nodes, are near the aorta. They receive lymph from the lower limbs, pelvis, and some abdominal organs, eventually draining into the cisterna chyli.
What about these superficial inguinal lymph nodes?
The superficial inguinal lymph nodes are located in the groin area. They drain lymph from the lower abdomen, buttocks, external genitalia, and parts of the lower limbs.
And we have the common iliac lymph nodes too.
Yes, the common iliac lymph nodes are along the common iliac vessels. They receive lymph from the pelvic organs and lower limbs, then drain into the lateral aortic nodes.
Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. We shall be talking soon. See you later.